Hello, thank you for checking out the Lighthouse Conversations. I'm Hashem and we're currently on a summer break. We'll be back with brand new episodes in September. What's cooler than cool? Ice cold. So I wanted to pick a throwback to our episode with Ahmad Al Marri, the founder of Canvas Gelato. This was a deeply candid conversation where Ahmad talked about the ups and downs of his entrepreneurial journey, including having imposter syndrome. Of course, we ate lots of gelato on the show. Thank you, Ahmed, for bringing it along. So sit back, have a gelato, and enjoy one from our archives.
I met you first. Well, I didn't meet you. I met your brand, Canvas Gelato, first through a friend who came to my house, as you know.
ضحى مرزوق.
Doha Marzu, exactly, with a few of your beautiful.
Tubs.
I thought everything about it I loved. It was super minimalist. I loved the names, the actual naming. I loved that it was kind of handwritten in this Flowmaster look. So, and I was very intrigued. Everybody was a huge hit. I can't remember. I think it may have been Eid. And then I investigated, and then we got to know each other. And your journey has been ongoing for how many years now?
2017 Ramadan.
2017, Ramadan. So let's go a little bit to the beginning. First of all, as by way of introduction, what brought you to food and to this business? How did this even come about as an idea?
I stumbled upon it.
Okay.
If you recall, there was a period in time where the scene was dominated by franchises and a certain type of restaurant and cafe.
That was always the case.
That was always the case.
Up until probably around 2017.
Probably earlier, but there were attempts of local concepts to pop up here and there.
Yeah.
And some of them have, flourished.
Ah.
I recall the beginnings being with a few concepts like Wild Pita. So Wild Pita, not sure if you've heard of them, but they used to make amazing shawarmas. They're not around anymore, but it was for me the first experience of
A local brand.
a community-driven local brand.
Yeah.
Then came the wave of specialty cafes, if you remember.
Yeah, for me. Tom and Surges of the
Tom and
world.
Surge's. No, but Tom and Surge has been, I think it started before Tom and Surge, but Tom and Surge has elevated the cafe culture.
Yeah, it went kind of
scene.
more in a kind of cooler.
Yes.
They were earlier, 100% right. They were Shakespeare's of the world. I mean,
Yes.
think about it.
Then you had the burger joints that were trying to make an appearance, and then Salt popped up
Yes.
as another brand that I think has flourished with community engagement.
And you
the
are
support.
close to Salt.
I'm
Full disclosure.
in full disclosure, I'm too close to Salt. I think too close to Salt, too close to their liking as well.
Yeah. Can you explain why you're close to Salt before we go on?
So yeah, my sister Amal, shout out to Amal and Deem.
Ahlan wa sahlan. Hi, Ahmed.
Biggest supporters I've ever had, and
That's
I think
great.
biggest supporters I'll ever have during this journey.
Beautiful. Older or younger?
Younger, so younger in calendar years, but older when it comes to wisdom and F&B
beautiful.
savvy and all that.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So she's one of the co-founders of
He is one half of the Salt Girls, as they used to be called
Salt
before.
Experience. Yeah.
That kind of intrigued me because a lot of people, when they see an F&B concept, they get inspired by the success that happens. But for me, it was more about the grind that happened before the success and how, an individual...
How difficult it is
How
to pull it off.
How difficult it is to pull it off and how hard it is for you to not only prove it to yourself that it's worth doing, to prove it to other people who are around you that may not share the same vision as you do.
And can I just pause here for a second? In a way, Salt's success can be a huge inspiration for you,
Yes, of course.
but it could also be intimidating, right? In the sense of, I'm thinking about my own brand, there is always a bit of a combination of me being, I was very inspired by a certain number of previous homegrown brands that have succeeded, but there's intimidation, not by by Salt, but the fear of failure. Can I also make it work, right? I mean, they go hand in hand, I think, with almost every entrepreneur.
Yeah, of course. But if you look at most of the concepts now, regardless of whether it was Salt, Thomas Surge, or, you've had a few brands who have flourished and evolved into holding companies of different restaurant brands. What used to be called Bull and Roo now is called EatX. And, Salt grew into being a few other restaurants,
Et cetera,
like
et cetera,
the
100%.
independent food company. Has this been done before? Of course. We had the Ben Hindi restaurants a few years ago where Japango and many Chinese and all those other brands were, in the market, but they're probably not as relevant anymore as they used to be. So there are ways for you to succeed, but it's a lot of effort for you to discount the negative voices that you hear around you.
What defines the word you just used, relevant? Because I agree with you. When we look at a first stage of homegrown Dubai restaurants or UAE restaurants, some of them are no longer with us, but some of them are still here, but as you said, have lost the cultural relevance in a way. How do you maintain that relevance in your view when you think about your own brand?
If you get to know, do let me know, please, because I have no idea.
I have some ideas, and I have some ideas of why I think your brand remains relevant, even though we're today in 2022, and in fact has grown, and in both perception and appreciation and all of those things. And I think one of the clues to me has always been what I actually started with, which is you focused on the key quantities that make a brand succeed. The rest is noise, so to speak. And you didn't try to go for the noise, which over time can become less relevant, whether it's the aesthetics or the packaging or the branding or all of that. That is important, but if the actual product is not strong enough, that will not carry you through the years, in my view.
So what makes it relevant to the scene is what makes it relevant to you as an individual, because you are part of that scene.
And what was missing to you? Was it more a gelato factor, or
It was two things. It was one, the intention was to I've been inspired by the food movement, and I wanted to be a part of that food movement, but I wanted to be, rather than be one of many, be a contributor to everybody else and try and fit in and fit into a puzzle piece that nobody was catering to.
and which one was that puzzle piece?
It was ice cream made from scratch using, let's not use fresh or organic or those terminologies, but using actual real ingredients.
Real ingredients, yeah.
Rather than use flavorings and syrups and all that. So too, when that decision was made, there were a few questions that were raised. One of them was, why didn't anybody do this before? Maybe because it doesn't work. So when you start off with a concept, you do your own research and you try and see where can you contribute. So I bought a few ice cream books. I started making ice cream alone. Found out that there are gaps that I need to fill, and that can only be done with a course. So I took on a course. I took the course, and one of the instructors in the course on the last day was like, he started talking to the students and asking them, so what are your plans? And we had people from all around the region. We had an individual from India who wanted to do an ice cream shop in Goa, which made sense. I said I wanted to make a delivery brand that I can deliver ice cream to houses. Like, why would that be an option? Why would that be a good idea? I said, I don't know, because I'd like to eat ice cream at home. That's how it started.
Today, that seems very prescient and extremely smart to have not focused necessarily on a physical space, but your typical thought process is, I'm going to make gelato, I'm going to get a shop somewhere, presumably in a mall or somewhere dense, and I will start like that. You didn't do that.
I didn't do that.
Why?
Well, maybe one of them is lack of resources
Okay.
at that time. And when you do not come from a certain industry, you would want to do things a little bit different, because
I agree with that.
you think that you can do things different, and you don't know better. You're just experimenting. So the other question was, so what does your menu look like? And the first flavor I said was black sesame. And he was like, why would anybody want to eat black sesame ice cream? I said, I don't know. I go to a Japanese restaurant and I enjoy having black sesame. Why wouldn't I want to have it at home? And then he bluntly said, I don't think this is going to work. I said, well, there's only one way to find out. If it doesn't work, what I gain from it is the experience and learning. So, I end up taking the course, and probably around 9 months of recipe development and tweaking and all that. And the first batch that I made after the course So we meet with friends every Thursday when the weekend was Friday and Saturday. And I put it in a styrofoam box. And we go for dinner. And after dinner, I tell them, I have something to show you. So we make it to the car. I left it in the car. It was frozen, fine. Half melted, but it was okay. We put it on the bonnet of the car in the parking. And I still remember which parking it was, the Box Park parking behind. And they start having the ice cream. And one of them said, so you think this is going to sell? I said, well, I hope so. That's the intention. He's like, okay. Good luck. I said, did you not like it? He's like, no, but I don't see why anybody would want to try to start an ice cream business. Okay. So it wasn't the fact that the quality wasn't great. It was the fact that the whole idea had no point. So, this is already feeding into my imposter syndrome. And the fact that, I feel like a mushroom that sprouted in the middle of the scene. Like, there's nobody like, so, my sister was kind enough for me to have a small corner in her kitchen. And that's the only connection I had with F&B. There was nobody else. So we continue doing R&D. And we launched our first collection in Ramadan. Had a few orders here and there. And it went great from there. I sent I sent a package to a friend of a friend who had a social media account. The intention wasn't for him to post. When he would review restaurants and food, he would be very eloquent and critique them in a very nice manner. So I thought the only question I had was, is this edible or not? Let's not even go there. Let's not even go if it's nice, fantastic. What's there to improve? Let's start with edible or not. So 4 days later, he posted about it. And we ended up having that evening around 100 and 150 request orders.
So this is all through social media. This is through an Instagram account.
This is through a Snapchat account.
And this is still the way you sell today.
Yes, we are growing up. We are launching our website soon.
Okay.
So
the next step would be online ordering.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yes.
So I can go on my Instagram account or Snapchat, whatever, it would link me to the website. One Black Sesame, one this, one that.
Yes.
And may I ask, why have you not, or are you not going the physical route, whether through your own locations, which exist, a lot of ice cream shops and gelato shops, you see them, or even like, what do you call it, that little beautiful thing they do, like the mobile one, or through maybe a known brand, and go and you can get that gelato. I mean, I know you're available, you have a relationship with Mirzam, and I can get your gelato there. But why did you not go more for physical locations? Why has it been always an online, or pretty much cloud kitchen type concept?
So there's an intention to be physical. In terms of pickup points,
there is.
The main challenge would be our existing wholesale network.
Interesting.
So this project has been fueled by the community, backed by the community.
You don't want to compete with.
I do not want to compete with vendors that have supported me from day one.
This concept of community is very important to you. We've spoken about this at some point, and I'm very curious to hear more about it. How do you find that community? Because to me, it feels like you and your brand are very much part of a extremely supportive community of mostly local brands that have grown up with each other, more or less. Am I right?
Yes, correct.
And to my understanding, you have sort of impromptu meetups or frequent meetups where you exchange ideas and brainstorm and exchange advice and so on and so forth.
So I had, in my first year, I had some sort of success during Ramadan and summer. And then in December and January, things have slowed down because obviously,
Gelato, yeah. It's more of a summer thing, yeah.
Because, you're in Dubai, it reaches -20 and people die from freezing. So you might want to cut down on the ice cream.
100%. That has been my concern every January. Thank you.
Which prompted me to question whether or not this idea is is feasible or not.
Sustainable.
Global
warming is playing to
my advantage.
Advantage for sure. Keep at it.
So the conversation I had with this wholesale client turned friend, Kathy Johnson of Mirzam Chocolate, and I was like, you know what? I'm done with this, and I'm going to close down. Oh, too soon? Like, you didn't even last a year. And she said, so what is it that you're lacking? I said, there's nobody to talk to.
I'm on my own. I
I'm
remember
on my
feeling that
own.
way. Well, I had Hani, but really, if you know Hani, I mean, I'm not sure how much talking there is, but yeah, I love him to death. But yes, I see your point.
Like, there's nobody else to talk to. And like, how much am I going to speak to you about recipes and pop-ups and all that? Eventually, you're going to get sick of it.
Yeah.
Plus, how much am I going to talk to my sister as well, Amal? So 3 weeks later, she had this idea existing in her mind where she wanted to gather homegrown food
Concept.
makers into a group, a support system. And she created the group, and I was added to that group. So I get a message separately that says, be nice, make friends. I said, oh, so I'm in a WhatsApp group now of complete strangers.
Okay, now I understand why I was never invited to this group. Because I was wondering the whole time why I've never been invited, and it's now very clear. Okay. At least my ego is no longer bruised. It's because of the make nice part. Okay, got it.
And this became my support system, and this became what fueled me into working and collaborating with other brands, supplying them. Some of them were suppliers to me as well. A member of the group was my cheesemaker who used to supply me with goat cheese. And I found the reason that I started this business for. And
Yeah, it gave you
kept
purpose.
me,
It gave you an
gave
anchor
me
as well.
it gave me purpose, and it gave me a motivation to strive to what I want to achieve. Some of them are now doing, amazing work.
Yeah. So when we think about Dubai, because we get a lot of this question comes up, and I'm sure you have been asked this by people that work either with the government or have some kind of influence. And I have been asked this before: what can we do to help entrepreneurs in Dubai thrive, not just in F&B, but generally speaking? What kind of support do they need? And from what you're saying, for example, this kind of group, right, was hugely helpful to you, probably remains very helpful to you, but you almost stumbled upon it, right?
Yes.
And it takes time. And you stumbled upon it, maybe someone else doesn't. So, for example, I didn't stumble upon it. We now know why, because it says be nice, but I digress.
Just to make it clear, the be nice, make friends message was sent personally to me because I was the problem in the group.
Oh, so now I feel really bad because I was not even sent that group. I mean, at least I should have been sent that message. I could have said, well, I'm not nice, Kathy. Don't invite me. And then she's like, fine. But I didn't even make it. Yeah. And others made it.
We
by the
have
way, people that
we
know,
have a
and-
strict, rigid criteria of people who joined that group. So,
And I think it's because I believe that Hatta Matar is part of the group and you had an Egyptian quota.
so yes, and
I am far more Egyptian than him, by the way. I just want to say that I should lobby for that spot.
a bold Egyptian quota. And he took that spot.
He
So
took this.
Yes.
A bold. Yeah. Well, he's now in the States for a couple of months. Do you think we can just casually coup d'etat him and replace him while he's gone? He'll never find out. I show up next to the next meeting, next dinner.
Well, the meetings haven't happened in a while because I think everybody has, in a couple of years, but because everybody has flourished and is
Yeah, they're
busy
too
doing
important.
things. They're too important.
They're too busy counting the money.
We're all busy counting the money, or wondering,
You now meet in a vault,
Or-
in a giant vault with your cash.
or wondering why on earth did we even start doing
Yeah.
this in the beginning?
To me, Masalan, one of the things that if I actually think about is when you're saying how do you help entrepreneurs, it's exactly these kind of groups in some way to try to create something that's a bit more process driven, so that entrepreneurs in various fields, let's just talk about F&B because it's a field we're both in, can hook into these groups. I mean, I was telling you, for example, about in tech in the US, you have groups like Y Combinator, amazing. You go in, you go through the process, and then you have Slack channel that everybody hooks up to. You get introduced. They're like, you need a lawyer, bam. You need accounting, bam. You need HR support, bam. We had to all figure it out on our own, and there's merit to that. But I think trying to create perhaps a process by which some of these groups exist would be helpful, and probably far more helpful than capital or any. I remember what we needed the most was exactly that kind of thing. You needed support of other entrepreneurs that you can speak to and be like, are you going through the same thing or not? Or am I crazy?
When I started doing this, I started it because I wanted to make ice cream. But then there's a whole package that comes with the process that a lot of people may not be aware of. A lot of people may be aware of, but I certainly wasn't. dealing with your finances, dealing with
Cash flow,
dealing with
cost,
problems with
supply chain.
employees,
Yeah.
sales. So you and Hani are founders of the Lighthouse, and the Lighthouse has grown into a group of
Restaurants. Five,
five,
including timeout. Yeah.
including timeout. So, and the only reason you know of Canvas was through a friend,
Correct.
and you happen to be a retail customer of Canvas before anything else. What if I decided to approach Hani and Hashem when you haven't even tried Canvas as a brand? How am I going to approach this? We've never met. We don't have common friends.
Correct.
There's nobody to introduce me to you on a professional level. So do I just show up with a box of ice cream and just...
Well, in fact, I think you did. And I've been eyeing it the whole time. I'm going to give you another 5 to 10 minutes. And then I feel like I have to at least try something. It's my breakfast. But yes, you would show up, I suppose, with a box of ice cream and say, I'm Ahmad and, I'd like you to try it. But طبعا, your chances of success this way are not very high.
It's not great. And is that the right way to do it? Probably not. But I wouldn't even know if that's the right thing, the right way to do it or not.
Yeah.
Okay, you've made a sale. You started making business with a cafe, for example. So what's next? How do you offer a new product? How do you offer a new, if you believe that a certain flavor fits well with that brand, how would you approach it? It now happens to be free flowing because I think
you've reached a certain momentum.
There's momentum, and there's you're familiar with the people you're talking to. But what if I was to do that from the beginning with no support, with no network? It would have been a very difficult situation.
When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Ahmad's journey with Canvas Gelato and hear about some of the funny stories people have made up about him and the Canvas Gelato brand. That's right after the short break. Welcome back. I'm Hashem and you're listening to the Lighthouse Conversations with our guest, Ahmad Al Marri, founder of Canvas Gelato. Do you see generally the brand more as a wholesale B2B brand or more of a customer-facing B2C brand in terms of your personal interests? Obviously, the brand goes both ways, right? And even if it goes, you are selling wholesale, ultimately you're touching a customer like me and Mirzam. I understand that. But when you think about new flavors, what you want to do for Canvas, do you think more about the restaurant owners or your potential wholesale customer? And as you said, a fit. مثلا, if the Lighthouse would collaborate with Canvas, what would be the right flavor? Or more, what kind of thing would Hashem like? Mish Hashem being Lighthouse owner, Hashem being end customer, consumer on the street.
Both.
Because
the intention when I started was to offer retail only. Because you would want to interact with human beings, and retail customers are human beings, but also wholesale customers who are a right fit to the brand, have the founders involved,
yes,
have the chefs involved, and they're not machines.
I see what you're saying. Still very much a personal decision that's underlying their decision making, which really makes it in a way kind of a personal.
If I was to send you an email with a list of flavors and a price list, would that go as well as me having a conversation with you with what is better, which is a better fit for the Lighthouse menu? Obviously, you'd want to have what's a better fit for the Lighthouse menu. If you were a Japanese restaurant, there's no reason for you to have a hazelnut and pistachio ice cream.
Probably not.
But you'd want to have
black sesame,
miso, yuzu,
correct,
and all the other Japanese ingredients,
correct,
because they work well with your brand. Now, that's a conversation we can have without sending you a menu to look at.
And is your menu development a set of core flavors that you then build around, or is it ever changing? There's
a core menu that we build around, but there's also the exotic ingredient that pops up every once in a while, or the exotic request of a certain flavor that you need to make from scratch. We try and rotate flavors 3 to 6 times a year. depending on the occasion, season. So
So
Ramadan.
does anything stay constant throughout the year?
Yes.
Some do.
Yes.
The best sellers, I would
Yes.
imagine. Okay. So what are some of the best sellers, out of curiosity?
Pistachio baklava,
Okay.
which is pistachio ice cream with homemade baklava smashed into
Fantastic.
it. We make all our pastes and nut butters and sauces all in house.
How sensitive are you to feedback? I remember when I first started, I tried very hard to take feedback well, but it was very difficult not to take it personally. Even though I knew a lot of people didn't mean it in any personal way. And in fact, some were actually trying to help. Not everybody was trying to help, but some were trying to help. But it was very difficult not to personalize it as a personal attack, even though I know it wasn't. My mind told me something and I acted differently. How was it for you?
If I had a heart rate monitor, every time somebody would give me feedback, you'd see a spike in my heart rate, and for no reason. Because everybody wants to give you feedback, whether it was relevant or not.
Well, that's anyway. Everybody has an opinion on food.
Everybody
that
has,
we know.
but the intention is mostly coming from a good place.
Yeah, it is. It is. Because it's so personal. It's intensely personal for them.
It's personal for them, and because it's you who creates it,
Yes,
There
they feel they
it's-
need to give you the feedback.
it's very personal for you as
But
well.
are you able to detach yourself from the feedback, good or bad? Yani, were you able to over time? I mean, I found myself over time. It doesn't mean I'm not acknowledging the feedback, relax. I'm very much acknowledging it, but I'm able to detach myself emotionally a little bit more so that I actually do something with it. At the beginning, it used to be taken as almost like an affront.
So here's the thing. Here's an individual who had no background in F&B, decides to make an ice cream business, who already suffers from imposter syndrome, and who initially had no network, and probably thought he had no idea what he was doing. And for you to give him feedback, whether good or bad, anyways fuel that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So if you were to tell me I did not like this, then he must be right.
Yeah.
And if you were to tell me I like this flavor very much, the first response from me would be, really?
Yeah.
Because I would not believe positive feedback. But I'd very much so believe negative feedback. Because of course they're saying the truth.
And was most of this feedback coming through social media channels?
No, customers were fine. It was my personal network.
Your personal network.
Yeah, and even if they said the good things, they must have been saying it because they want me to feel good.
And were they?
No. It was all in my head.
Okay. Look, part of what I do, part of this is, there's a bit of armchair psychology that I do here. So feel free to, we can talk about imposter syndrome, other things. We can get overly personal, but I can give you some free advice. And I feel very qualified to do it, even though I have no qualifications.
When you first approached me to the podcast, that was a year ago, and I had no idea how the Lighthouse conversations would grow. Now, after hearing most of the episodes, after listening to most of the episodes,
thank you.
It was it feels now that I am stepping into a mental health facility, and because every single
it's a lot.
It's a lot, and there's a reason, because I'm not the only one who's suffering from imposter syndrome and suffering from issues. Everybody else is. What this platform has highlighted is, yes, there are successful people, but everybody has issues.
100%. And I'll be very honest, this is exactly, first of all, I want to say that I really appreciate the feedback you've given me, because you always give me feedback on the podcasts and the different episodes, which I've always appreciated. Really, that's been great and a constant. But secondly, I think that was one of the main reasons we launched this podcast 3+ years ago, which was essentially, you said it, everybody has issues, but the idea was we wanted to unmask the person a little bit, not to say that they just have issues, to say that they have a journey. Let's talk about that journey.
It's a journey of growth.
And the journey of growth will invariably have pros and cons, highs and lows. And let's not gloss over that, because without that, you don't get to where this person is. Most of these people sitting in the seat you're sitting in today have had a measure of success, or frankly, they wouldn't be here. Not they wouldn't be here because I only want to interview successful people. I wouldn't have heard about them, right? At the end of the day. So that's the truth.
So imagine this. We're all standing next to a waterfall, and I have to climb that waterfall. I'm climbing that waterfall. I'm climbing the mountain, and all this water is pouring on me, on my face, and all I can feel is I'm drowning. Everybody else around me is seeing that growth, but I don't happen to see it because I'm busy drowning in my own issues.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And if you have this conversation with every single person, they'd say positive things about what you're doing, but they wouldn't see that they're growing as well.
You're
And
100%
unless
right.
you tell them, then they'll take a step back and they'll say, probably you are right. We are all growing at the same. Some of us are, have a faster pace than others. But looking back at 4 or 5 years ago, most of the brands I was associated with then have grown into being something worthwhile.
I can say the same thing.
Now, worthwhile doesn't have to be financially worthwhile, but
no, they're relevant.
They're relevant and they're doing...
There's self-fulfillment. There's people, absolutely. I mean, it's not just a measure of financial success. It's a measure of they are now appeared on the map.
And they're doing good work.
Doing fantastic work.
They're doing good work in terms of the product they offer, in terms of, the craft that they make. But we don't see it in ourselves.
Yeah, it's difficult. And it goes back to a little bit this point that you made, which is, there aren't obvious communities here, places for people. I mean, one of the reasons behind the Lighthouse, especially in D3 from the beginning, was to make it a hub for entrepreneurs. I mean, people to meet. And I was always hoping, and this happened over time, that you might come one day for coffee or for a meal and actually meet someone else that you have heard of or interested in meeting, etc. And that creates a natural hub because obviously we congregate around food and drink and things like that. So that is very, very important. And you have today on the digital front, some conversations that take place, but I don't think they replace the physical relationships that we could have of meeting and talking and so on and so forth. And that's really, really important because to your point, when you look at Dubai as a whole and the entrepreneurial landscape, it's grown hugely. And there was baby steps, but the cumulative experience is quite something. I mean, today being a homegrown brand is taken for granted. To your point exactly, up to 2017 when you started, we started in 2017. It was still a rarity. I mean, you were one of X being a handful of new brands popping up.
And you would connect with small business owners so easily because you felt like you were part of a movement.
Yeah.
You were part of a group of people who were trying to do something different. They were trying to make things better. Not to say that, global or franchises or international brands aren't doing great, but
different to the market.
You're doing something different to the market, and every country you visit and every city you go to, you would like to see what the city offers. When I first started, I thought I was alone.
Yeah.
And I hid behind the Canvas Instagram account.
But Farah does this all the time.
Farah does this all the time.
Yeah.
Which is why me and Farah clicked online.
Yeah, clearly your Instagram buddies, I heard, yeah.
So I hid under the brand and I separated the brand from my personal identity for a very long time.
What was the purpose of that?
The purpose was if it was of service to the brand.
You didn't feel lending your name to it would help?
At that point, probably not. I think I was wrong.
I can't say if it was right or wrong, right? This is for you. But what I can tell you is it allowed the brand to evolve in a direction that was very uninhibited because there wasn't the weight of a person on it. I knew you for some time now, but a lot of people had no idea who the founder, the owner, in fact, and spoke to a person behind Instagram. In fact, I think many of them thought you were a woman.
I think you thought as well.
Yeah, I did too. Until you showed up.
Until I showed up and you thought maybe I was coming to the wrong table.
Yeah, so
I had that all the time. And
that's an interesting experiment, right? Because I don't know if it's right or wrong one. I think it enabled the brand to evolve very freely for a long time.
It evolved the brand to evolve very freely, but what is interesting is the narratives that people create around the persona behind the brand or the person. I heard many stories about myself. One being a woman mother of two. The other is
how old are the kids?
No idea. I haven't seen them. Like mine, yes, but as a mother of two, I have no idea who these kids are. But mine are 10, 7, and 4.
Okay.
Me as a father.
Yeah, the real kids.
The real kids.
Not the imaginary kids.
We had a pop-up once at Mirzam. It was National Day 2020. So somebody stepped to me at a pop-up and she was like, I've interacted with the brand a few times. I've had it at a few friends' houses and it's nice, well done. Thank you, I'm honored. So where does this love for gelato come from? I said, what do you mean? She's like, it must be from your Italian wife. And I said, Italian wife? Is she good looking? Like, what do you mean? I said, because clearly I haven't seen her and I had no idea I had an Italian wife. So she said, what do you mean? I said, I'm not married to an Italian woman. She's like, so where does this come from? I said, I wanted to make ice cream and I made it. And I asked her a question. I said, where did you hear that story from? She said, I heard it from a few places. I said, so a few places know that I'm married to an Italian wife.
Because only Italians can make gelato.
And I don't know. I went back home and I told my wife that apparently you're Italian. That's what people think.
How did she feel about
She was
that?
not impressed.
Yeah.
So, it's fun because people make up.
It's funny. They see they make up what they want to see, right? In a way.
And because most homegrown businesses of food and dessert are founded by women.
Correct.
And because the color palette on the Instagram account is
colorful.
Very colorful and bright.
Yeah.
So I get the occasional DMs from women that say, Hala Habibti.
Yeah.
Because they think I'm a woman, and you respond back, Hala Habibti, because you don't want to make it awkward for them.
Yeah, of course.
And they order ice cream, and if it evolves, you talking about your kids and how they're doing. And they probably to this day they assume there's a woman behind the brand, but hopefully they won't be listening to this conversation.
No, I think you can put this on you can always point them to this now to the real identity. I think that that's an interesting point. I'll give you an example that's somewhat related. I mean, when we first started the Lighthouse, I wasn't sure. I have a private Instagram account, so it's not widely shared or anything like that. But I wasn't sure whether I wanted to share things about the Lighthouse on my account, because it was sort of along the lines of what you just said. I didn't want to conflate. I had my own identity. I also had my own interests outside of the Lighthouse, and I wasn't sure if those two can merge and coexist. Over time, I felt a lot more comfortable doing that and still having my own identity, so to speak. But at the beginning, it was very difficult, and I hesitated. So I completely understand.
Because as a business, you weren't stable, probably.
100%.
And the success of the Lighthouse will be attributed to you personally, and the failure of the Lighthouse will be attributed to you personally.
That's
and you do not want that weight.
Exactly right. I also didn't want the brand to evolve as
Hashem's restaurant.
Yeah, Hashem's restaurant or Hashem's concept stores or Hashem's this, and even creating other extensions of the brand, if you will, like this one, right, was sort of saying exactly that, namely that, that's one of the things we do, but all of these things fit with each other in some way that may over time evolve. It may change, but we don't want to personalize it. It's not me. There's a big team behind us. All of them bring in something to this brand. Hami and I happen to be the ones that found it, but that's certainly not how we got from A to Z. We got from A to Z because of the help of all of those people, not just working within the Lighthouse, but as you said, collaborators and the community around us. I mean, that has been extremely helpful over the years.
Your neighbors are part of your community.
100%.
The business owners upstairs,
Yes,
the restaurants, the restaurant right across the street.
Correct.
You have a relationship with Samar Hamada, who is probably people can deem.
I don't talk about this publicly that we have a relationship. I tell most people I don't know him. I mean, honestly, it's just for.
Cut this off the podcast.
Why? It's fun. He loves this.
No, I mean as a joke, as part of the script. People would see it as competition, but it's more than competition. Yes, there's competition, but also there's camaraderie.
We honestly don't see it as competition. And if you look at Samar and others, and he was one of the early. I mean, they're our neighbors in D3, as you said. From the beginning, we've exchanged notes. We've always spoken. I mean, we went to Bay Abu Dhabi because Samar told me, and if it doesn't do well, I'm going to blame him, by the way, just on the side. But he said, I'm going there. Why don't you look into it? So it's always been very collaborative with the brands around us, except if they choose to make it competitive and take a more combative attitude, that's different. Then there's nothing I can do. Some have, but very few.
And competition is not. There's nothing wrong with competition. It's you're competing to better yourself, grow, but it's when a business sees success as the failure of others is when you start having a problem.
So you've been around now as a brand for 5 years, 5+. What have you learned or what have you discovered about yourself during this period that do you feel you didn't know? Or maybe didn't understand as well? Because I know that a big part of this for all of us is there's this journey of self-discovery in a way.
I read a post, I can't remember where, but I think I've shared it with you. And the decision for somebody to open a business is the intention of him to do deep soul searching.
Yeah,
and
maybe
that wasn't the intention, but
But it comes along.
This journey. and you find out more about yourself, things that you like and dislike, and it highlights what you're good at, and the problems you may, I don't want to say problems, but the issues where you lag skill and talent and whatnot. What I learned is this business started off as a hobby, but it outgrew this intention and became something.
But was it really a hobby?
Yes,
Or
it was. It wasn't. It was a creative outlet.
yeah,
What
but it's not
happened-
I'm saying the hobby. And I mean, I did not meet you when you first started the brand, but certainly since I've known you, you've taken this seriously. So I mean, I'm not that the hobby is not serious, and I'm saying it was a creative outlet, but I think you were very willing to make this your calling in a way. I mean, yani, something that
you find out. You find
Yeah.
out eventually, but it was my creative hobby because I wanted to try and do something different and creative, and come up with a new outlet for me to experiment with things. Then it grew into being a brand and a business that people want to work with, and then you start thinking, oh, so people actually like this, and people want me to supply them in cafes. That wasn't the intention.
yeah.
And then it evolves into what the true calling is. God has plans for you, whatever plans you have.
Was there hesitation because you have a family, you feel some obligations towards? I mean, was this a concern? I mean, how was the conversation with your wife when you started this about, look, I'm going to start this. I don't know what direction it's going to take. I mean, it's a big risk, right? You're taking personal risk, financial risk, reputational risk.
Everybody was supportive 100%.
That's great. That's not always the case.
That's not always the case, but also I've been supported by my sister. I've mitigated risk in some way.
Yeah. So there was a path in the family.
There were baby steps that I've taken to make it easy for me to back off if things did not work.
Okay. That makes sense.
And that was the plan.
Okay.
The plan was to back off when things didn't make sense. Now, what didn't
So
happen...
that's a very important point, because I'm sure a lot of people are listening and thinking about starting a business. So you had the backup plan.
I had a back off plan, which is to make it easy for me to exit if it doesn't work.
Which is a backup plan, essentially.
Which is a backup plan.
And what would happen if with that backup plan, you would go back and get a job?
I still have a job.
So it was in parallel with your job.
Yes.
So would you advise others to do the same? To start it off while they have a job, try, and then maybe kind of move full time, which you haven't done yet, but others may have, if it succeeds? Or would you say, you know what, it's so all consuming that I actually would say, leave your job, give it your best shot, try it for a year, and say if it doesn't work within a year, go back and get a job? Which direction would you think makes more sense?
I'd say both, because the fact that you have a day job makes it very mentally consuming.
That's my point.
But also, on the other hand, what if you do not have a safety net? What if you don't?
Correct.
What if you don't have a job that provides for the family?
Correct. So to your point, I found it impossible to do this while having a job. I actually quit my job, went all out, knowing fully well that this is a huge risk. Spoke very openly to my family about the fact that, look, this is a risk. My backup was, or at least I thought was, look, within a year, if it doesn't work, hopefully I can always get a job because I have some experience already. And I had made some provisions from a financial perspective to be okay for a little while. But it was a huge part of the risk taking. And I'm with you. I couldn't advise people when I'm asked today which direction is the right one. For me, I can say I wasn't able to be 9 to 5 and then coming home and working on this in the evening. That didn't work for me.
Risking it is what probably made you succeed.
Who knows? It put some pressure.
And pressure maybe ended up making you find ends to what you want to achieve.
There's truth to that. That kind of pressure and stress forces you to keep searching for the right ingredient, to keep iterating, whereas potentially having a job gives you a little bit of a false comfort, but
I still have something to get back to.
Yeah, and time is on my side. Now, ultimately, you cannot, you have to start within a period of time in these businesses, as you all know. It either takes off within, I would say, 12 to 18 months, most cases, or it doesn't. Now, you can reiterate and keep changing it until you get there. That's fine. But usually, if there's a product market fit or not, right?
Correct. It also comes down to the personality of the person, if they're able to handle that much pressure or not.
That's right. I think that's correct.
Some people will end up, cracking, knowing that they do not have a job and knowing that this is their livelihood.
Yeah.
Even if they,
100%.
even if they have a backup plan, but it still causes pressure.
No,
Not everybody
100%.
can handle that.
I mean, our mutual friend that we were joking earlier about, Hatem, spoke about this here on the podcast. There's no right or wrong here. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And I agree with you that the formula has to work for you.
Work for you. If I was to go back in time and fix, it's not a regret, but something I would fix is take this project more seriously from the beginning.
Okay.
And not treat it as a hobby. Because I think many of us, do something because it's fun, it's creative.
What would have that achieved though? Just you would have gotten to your goal, quote unquote, quicker?
Yes.
Okay.
Quicker is not the word, but more timely. So I would have probably had a website running for a few years now. I would have probably
certain goals.
Certain
within the
goals.
evolution of the business.
Yes, it would have evolved faster than
maybe you took more of a leisurely pace. Malish, it's working.
Yes.
I'm not under huge pressure. The website can wait another year.
Correct.
You would have probably been like year 2, the website has to be up.
Yes, correct.
That makes sense.
That would also given me a steeper learning curve to learn from. So maybe 5 years post setup and post start, this conversation would have been different. Now, I don't regret any of that because that's part of the journey.
Correct.
And I would have enjoyed it as much as I enjoy it now. This business has given me the opportunity to meet people I have never met before and people I look up to. When you invited me to join the podcast, I think a year ago, I should have said yes then.
I understood though.
Because the roster of guests wasn't as big as it is now. So now when I look at the roster of guests and I see people like Nada Dibs and Cyril and Muhammad Orfali and Hatem Matar and all those other people, بعدين يطلع لك أحمد المري في النص طالع يعني.
No, I don't agree with that at all. I actually appreciated and respected your decision at the time because it told me something about you and knowing yourself, and that's one of the points. Yani, I think people need to know that they're ready, and we get this every once in a while. A guest saying, "Look, I would love to, but I'm not ready," or "I would love to, but I'm very, very shy. I'm مثلا introverted. I don't like to be." And in some cases, I'll push a bit and say, "Look, we'll make this easy for you because we know how to do that by now. I hope." But in some cases, I'll say that's perfectly fine. That's not for everyone. I mean, I really do. And what was interesting in your case is I think you didn't feel ready, and it wasn't. Sometimes we get, I'm not ready, wait until I launch this or that. I'm like, no, guys, this conversation is not about a new launch or a new market product.
It's about the journey.
It's about the journey. But I completely understand, and I think you do these things when you are ready for it. When we rekindled our conversation a few weeks ago, you were ready, and it was obvious to me. I would have not asked again, Yani.
Yes,
so
because,
it's also understanding your audience, understanding the guests. There's a lot of things like you that 2 years ago, I wasn't comfortable maybe speaking about in public, that today I feel a lot more at ease. Yani. It's a beautiful thing about it.
I came out of the freezer.
And who says we can transition our podcast with Ahmad into an ice cream mukbang / cooking show? Netflix, are you listening? What's this one here?
This one next to you is peanut butter and jam.
Oh, that's hot.
It's roasted.
Keep this very close to me.
Roasted and freshly ground peanuts.
Chirag, we very deliberately only brought 2 bowls. I don't know if you've noticed, but I hope you got the cue.
No, the 2 bowls are for me and you. They get a special tub by request.
They get their own tub?
And they get their own tubs. So he gets a vegan tub and she gets a black sesame. So
you're fine.
You can have your bowl if you want.
My bowl is now not special at all. I get this tiny bowl. He gets the whole tub. That's vegan. Fine.
He's a producer. I need to be friends with the producer.
So this is which one? This is the
hojicha. Hojicha is the green tea roasted over charcoal.
This is fantastic. This is so interesting.
Different.
Very different.
It's subtle. It's not
it.
strong, but it's lingering. It's long lasting. غريب طعمه.
Wow.
And as a tea, it's really, really nice. It's very different. It's roasted. It's
hojicha. Is that how you pronounce it?
Hojicha.
Hojicha?
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to get over the fact that you got your own tub, but it's fine. By the way, my tubs have my initials on them. I'm making this up, but the audience doesn't know that because they can't see it. Just the smell of peanut butter. Amazing. Well, Ahmad's been the most generous of guests. No one else brought anything. Would have easily taken it. This is delicious.
I like how this is evolving into a cooking show for some reason.
But that's the whole point. Who says we can compete with Orfali? Here we do.
لا لا الله يخليك
Yeah.
بقى. لا الله يخليك Orfali, if you're listening to this, please,
Yeah,
I'm not
I'm sure
competing
you
with
will
you.
be. This is Hashem's cooking show.
This is Hashem's cooking
Hashem's
show,
cooking show.
and I'm only a guest.
More important than the Orfali, Netflix, are you listening? يعني ده الأهم. خلينا نركز. Put your eyes on the prize.
لا ما علي حبة حبة يعني أنا just started the Lighthouse Conversations دخلني نتفلكس على طول.
Fair enough. Thank you for joining us on the Lighthouse Conversations with me, Hashem Montasser. We're produced by Chirag Desai, and our content director is Farah Al-Sharif. We mentioned Samer Hamada, founder of Akibadori, and Hatem Matar, founder of Matar Farms on this episode. You'll find my conversations with them and many more in our extensive collection of previous episodes in your podcast players, including Apple, Spotify, Anghami, and Google Podcasts. So go there and press the follow button so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. We'll see you in a few short weeks.